Jeremiah 29:11, everyone quotes it, says it. Yes, God says, I know. What did God say? He says, I know the plans that I have for you. So before God designed you, God had a plan in mind for you. Every one of you seated here, God had a plan in mind for you. Failure is when you run your life based on your plan as opposed to the plan of God. Everything God created, He has a plan for it. That is important. Do you believe God has a plan for you? Yes. Whose plan is the best? Your plan or God's plan? Yes. Do you believe God's plan is the best for you? Yes. If you believe God planned your life, do you believe also God planned who you are to be married to? Yes. Do you believe that there is nothing that has happened in your life so far that is coincidental, but it is divinely orchestrated? Hello? Yes. Because it's easy to say God has a plan for me. Do you know you are part of that plan? Now, what is a plan? A plan is a well-written, detailed series of events. It is easy to write it down, but are you thinking about it? Because every time for the 30 years I've taught the word, this has taught me to highlight, bullet point certain words for people to think about them. That's why I said, yes, you've written it down, but do you consider or even think about the word series of events? So none of the events you go through in life are isolated, but they are connected to the plan of God. Where you are born, God knew who would be your mother, who would be your father, the home you'll be born in. You hear series of events, happenings. God plans not of evil, but plans, He says, I know plans I have for you, not of evil, but plans of good intentions, isn't it? But even though God planned things that are good, there is an evil person called Satan who also has a plan for you. Somebody said, God has a plan for me.
God has a plan.
So is the devil. By the way, God never forces you to embrace His plan, but Satan will manipulate you and then force. After you fall for his manipulation, Satan will force you to follow his plan. So people say, but now there's a devil, but also there is God. Also, you have the power to choose. Nobody forces you to choose. Do you hear what I'm saying? So this being said, God shows us His plan from Genesis. Genesis 1:26, what does it say? This is where we find a problem. Have you ever dared, even as it does it bother you? God says, I know the plans I have for you. Do you know the plans God has for you? It says plans to prosper you, not to harm you. But do you know in detail the plan, the purpose, the assignment God has for you? Do you know why you go through things you've gone through? Do you know why there are certain people who walk away from you? Do you know that when you discover the plan that God has for you, not everybody is a part of that plan? So you will never more people God separates you from, takes away, people that are not big enough to have enough. Listen to me, not everybody is called to walk with you. Some of you carry bigger stuff and you want to associate, you carry an eagle's anointing and you're associating with ducks. Ducks will never be able to accommodate an eagle. When you fly, they're gonna say you're acting out of nature, because ducks don't fly. Single ladies and men, listen to me. God says, I know the plans I have for you. In that plan, does your wife or husband exist in that plan? Why do we make God seem as if God is ambiguous, like vague? He puts you here and you hear the slogan, you know, there are more women and men are few. Yes, there may be more women and men are few, but my man is there. The one for you, designed for you, is there. Not all men and women existing are existing purposefully. If you live purposefully, you will attract the one that is purposefully ordained for you. You live haphazardly, you become part of everybody else. Genesis 1:26. This is God's intention and plan revealed from the very chapter, very first book, very first chapter. He says, let us make man in our own image, after our likeness. And God says, why did He create man? He tells you to do what? And let them have complete what? Over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the beasts, and over all the earth, and over everything that creeps upon the earth. I'm going to ask you, those of you that want religion, did God ever say He created man to worship Him? In Genesis, when God is revealing His plan, did He say He created man to pray to Him? Don't get offended, I'm asking. Prayer came as a result of man's fall. Man was never intended to pray to God. God would come come as me, I'm seated with Huldah. There was never a distance between God and man. They communed freely. Let me ask you, before the man fell, how could he manage an entire world alone? He had the abilities of God, unlimited abilities of God to manage. Let me ask you, man before he fell, he named everything without repeating anything. Look at the intelligence that man had before he fell from the presence. He was an unlimited man, a very creative man. So you see, after he fell, even his mind fell. The mind became limited. That's why every time we come back into the presence, everything begins to function. When God said, let us make man, then he said he created them both male and female. Now I'm going to say this to you. What came first, assignment or marriage?
Assignment.
God has said, let us make man in our what?
Image.
And God then says why he makes man in his image, to have what?
Dominion.
Which is authority, the right to rule, to be king over everything. Yeah, that is God's original plan. God was governing heaven. He wants man to govern where? To be the, God created man to be the king. The word dominion has the word king in it, to rule, which means a ruler, a king. Just as God was king in heaven, God made man to be king on earth. You understand? What does that mean? That is extension of his sonship. God created man to be a son, not to be a servant. In Genesis, do you see anywhere God said, let us create man to serve us? Please, let them have dominion. Let them be in charge. Assignment came before marriage, true or not? So what gives relevance to the marriage?
Assignment.
When marriage is not in an assignment, it is irrelevant to God. God does not allow a man to leave his mother and father's house to go find his spouse before he has discovered. God first revealed his assignment to a man